Plugin Alliance has become one of the industry leaders in the plugin business. Recently, Dirk Ulrich, the CEO of Plugin Alliance, said that they had sold 40,000 orders in a matter of 24 hours. That is insane. All that success is much deserved because they keep pumping out quality plugins that I use in my everyday mixing and mastering. I also find that out of all the yearly subscription models there are, and let's face it, there's a ton of them now, Plugin Alliance seems to deliver the best bang for its buck. So in today's video, I will show you my top 10 favorite Plugin Alliance plugins and how I use them every day in my mixing and mastering. Let's go. All right, so number one, you got to start off with the classic. This is the Brainworks. This is what started it all, at least in my opinion, for Brainworks and Plugin Alliance, was the Brainworks BX Digital version 3 now. It started as a version 1. So when this thing first came out, it was actually pretty game-changing. It had this mono maker where what this does is, as you bring it up, it will take whatever's on the sides and snap it down to mono. So anything below 167 hertz will go to mono. I use that still to this day all the time. That's a huge feature, and especially when it first came out. And then the stereo width when it first came out was huge too. Everyone was putting this on their stereo bus. There's a ton of stereo width plugins now, but this is still a go-to. Where the real power of this plugin is in the MS stage, where you can gain up on this side, right? If you want to like boost some air or something on your sides, or if you want to just boost a bit of a low end, just on the mono side, because that's usually where your kick and bass are, you can do that. And this presence shift and bass shift, I use quite a bit on mixes, a lot. Really cool, just kind of curve, and it will boost the low end while taking out some of the mud. Same with the high end, it can boost some of your brightness if you need a little more presence, as they call it, the presence shift, while taking out some of the harsh frequencies right here in the dip. Another great feature on this thing is the dynamic EQ, which can work as kind of like a de-esser on your mastering. If you're having certain frequencies, you can solo it and dial it in to find the frequencies that might be annoying and compress them a little bit. So this plugin still to this day is my go-to on my mix bus and so many other things. The next plugin on my list is the famous Black Box. Now this is the new version, which is the HG2MS, which in other words is for mid-side. It does have some new different features here with the different band switches. On my template, I'm still using the old one. I still haven't quite gotten into this one, but since this is new, figured I'd post it on here. It is cool. I use this on drums mostly, a little bit of saturation, usually something like this on here. And we'll turn the air on or off depending, but this also works great on vocals and mix bus. With the new features, it has this parallel mix, which is super useful. You used to have it up here, or has it up here on the original version. Now it's down here. Cool, you can add some stereo width. Really cool is the mono maker, which we talked about in the last plugin, but having this in the plugin is really cool and helpful on drums. So this is my go-to on drums, but also useful on a lot of other sources. Number 3, this thing is amazing. So this to me, just saying it, is the best Neve plugin out there. I put this on all my drums. Click it to all so you get the TMT inside, which if you don't know, makes it so each channel sounds a little bit different. And that's what summing is all about. That's what using a console was all about. Each channel was slightly different because it was analog. There's no way to make it completely precise like a computer. So what Dirk and the guys have done over there is switch this TMT inside, which kind of gives that impression. And it does make a difference. It's not huge, but it definitely makes a difference. Just putting it on makes your drums and your bass sound thicker. It has this unity button, which is huge. So if you want to drive the pre, which is one of the cool tricks you can do for a Neve, you can drive it here and it keeps the same level, but starts bringing up the distortion, the harmonic distortion that you would get. So I use that a lot, especially on like snare drums, kicks, if it needs a little more punch. The compressor is great. I believe it's a 2254 compressor. Another thing that's awesome about this has the mix knob on it. Great EQ, you can switch it from the 84 to the 73 just by the switch of a button. Awesome. And like I said, I use it on my drums on every single mix. Another great one. So this has replaced any other 4000 I use. They have the 9000 too, so they're kind of not the same, but both having that SSL sound. I like the 4000 a little better because it can get a little more grittier. 9000 is really good on hip hop and R&B stuff that you want a little bit of a cleaner sound, but it has, you know, just range for days. This I use sometimes on my music buses where I'm using the 80 on my drums and bass. I like the way it sounds. I like the TMT inside stuff. I just like to be able to grab this EQ and make quick changes if I need to. Also, this is great really if you're starting to learn EQ, because you can just sit here and play with it and listen. And while the Fab Filter and stuff like that, where you see the EQ is great, this is great for really learning because you actually just listen. You know what I mean? It's not like I can see the graph and that's what it's doing and, you know, all that stuff. So really great for this. I still use this a lot on vocals just because it sounds good and I know the way these bands work. Another fantastic plugin here. Okay, number 5, the Bettermaker. I've had this in the analog world, and recently I've gotten rid of most of my analog EQs except this tube tech that I have now, which is just, you know, it's like the final stage for color, but most of my EQing and mastering nowadays is in the box. And this is one of the plugins, is one of the reasons I didn't need to keep my Bettermaker. This does what the Bettermaker does to me, for me. You know, the sound is really, really close. And this is such a flexible EQ. It's great because you have a Pultec section over here. So if you know anything about a Pultec, it gives you all the things the Pultec would give you. And then it gives you 2 parametric EQs here, right? Plus you have a high pass filter frequency down here, over here. And you can do this in MS. And so it's just such a versatile EQ. I grab this quite a bit on my master. There's a couple different EQs I use, but this is definitely one of the go-tos. And I'll use it on drums sometimes and vocals. If I want like a clean Pultec, this is what I'll go for. And just having the extra parametric bands is always so useful, you know, because the Pultec will get you like the smiley face EQ, make everything sound nice and thick and bright and all that, but you'll still need to want to dial in on other things, and that's where these come in. As a full EQ, it's so useful on masters and so forth, where it gives you a little bit of everything to really make the sound you're trying to create in your head. So this is another one of my go-tos for sure. Number 6, the big dog, the AMEK EQ200. Now, this has become one of my favorite mastering EQs, and another one of the reasons that I don't really have much analog mastering EQs anymore, because it's so much easier to do it in digital and sounds just as good, if not better. This thing is amazing. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands, right? And you can work this in stereo or MS, which is always super useful. A lot like the V3, it has the mono maker and the stereo width and all that stuff, so it can work a lot like that, but I just like the way this one sounds a bit better. You can dial it down, and what's also cool is you have either, you know, 15 dB of gain, or you can switch this to a much smaller increments where it only goes up to 7, and that's much better for mastering, because honestly, I've never had to, you know, boost something 15 dB with mastering. So on my chain, it's always switched to all of these like this, right? So it's got a great shelf. You can switch off the shelf over here, boost, cuts, everything. This thing can do it all, and it is amazing on the master bus. Now here's another complete classic coming in at number 7, the Shadow Hills mastering compressor. This one's been out for a while. One of the, you know, all-stars I call of Plugin Alliance. Use this on drum bus. My man Jason Joshua taught me how to use this on drum bus. I still use it a lot on the drum bus. Also great for mastering. This is kind of the settings I usually use. Really fast recovery, pretty fast attack. You know, 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio. Slight use of the optical, and I'm just tapping it. And just tapping this thing, a dB, sounds amazing. It brings the thickness that not many other compressors can have. They have the newer model of this too, which is cool. I still like this one. To me, it just sounds a little thicker. The newer one sounds a little more, I guess, what's the word? Cleaner. And for mastering, that's a lot of times what you're after, but I like a little bit of color, and for me, this one kind of does it. So this is one of my go-tos for my drum bus. All right, coming in at number 8, the Metric AB adapter. I don't even know what you call this plugin. I call it the AB, but I'll tell you something. I couldn't mix a record without this plugin at this point in time. Like, I couldn't. The rough mix has become so important to a mixing and mastering engineer, because people are working on their production so much at home now that if you don't start off where they left off and you try this like mix the record from scratch thing, you're going to take the biggest L of your life. You have to be able to listen to the rough mix throughout the time you're mixing a song for an artist nowadays, or else you're just going to lose everything they worked for. You know what I mean? So the rough mix is one of the most important things nowadays. And this thing is the most useful tool to be able to work on that. So you have your regular mix in A, and then you can load their rough mix in B along with any references they have, any references you want to have. 16 different references, never use that many, but I've filled this thing up pretty good. And you can A/B the mixes and make sure you're staying on the right track and not losing something or losing the groove, which can happen a lot in mixing. You always want to make sure you're maintaining the groove and so forth. The other huge tool of this is this match button. You just click this and it will start matching the volume of your mix and the rough mix. That is another huge advantage because a lot of times either their rough mix is really low and just by bringing up the gain on your mix, you're like, oh, I'm killing it. But once you match it, you might realize that you aren't killing it and you're actually killing the groove. So being able to hear the rough mix and your mix at the same level is so key, because that way you really know if you're actually beating their rough mix or if you're making it worse or if you're making it better and so on and so forth. So if you're mixing for other people, or even if you're trying to beat your rough mix, this plugin is needed 100,000%. This should have been number 1, but it's number 8. Okay, another old classic. Maybe they could make this thing bigger in an update because it's still kind of small. But this thing is amazing on vocals. I will show you. All you do is crank that air band up and crank this up to 2 to 3. And if you still need a little more, this 2.5 I found is great for like 0.5. Like it's boosted so much. These numbers are not correct, I've decided, because 1 is a lot, 0.5 is good. And but this EQ is great for vocals. It's also got a great with this sub button, with the sub EQ, and this 40 hertz, and even the 160 is great for bass sometimes. It will do just the right amount of stuff that you might need. Never use the 2652 much. I'm sure someone does, but this thing has always been a go-to for vocals and for drums and bass. Really great EQ. Okay, last but not least, and I know this plugin looks boring, but this I actually use on 3 to 4 mixes a week. This is the SPL De-Verb. And why do I use this plugin on 3 to 4 mixes a week? Because I mix a lot of stuff where people are recording in a home studio. And a lot of times what happens in that home studio is people don't quite understand proper recording techniques and are recording in a place with a lot of hard surfaces. And what that does is it creates a lot of the room sound in the microphone. This can also happen from just bad gain structure of recording. You have the gain way up and you're rapping really or singing really soft, and a lot of the room comes in. So what happens is I get a lot of the room sound in there, which makes it tough to compress because as you turn the compressor up, the room comes up. So it's just a lot of double-edged sword stuff. This thing is really good. I usually get -8 is like my happy point. We'll take out a little bit of the room so it's not so prevalent in the vocal. Sometimes you can go to -10. I find if I get much further, it starts sounding weird. But this is a go-to for doing just that. And sometimes I'll combine this with like the RX De-Verb if it's really bad. But sometimes just using this will do the trick. So I hope today's video was helpful for you guys. Let me know what your favorite Plugin Alliance plugins are in the comments below. If you need your songs mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also check out my courses and presets there too. Talk to you soon.